First, thank you all for joining. And I just want to give you kind of a short introduction about the project and the webinar today. This webinar is the second out of 4 webinars that are coming out from the Sender project. And the goal is for us to inform you about the project, to share with you some insights, and hopefully make some more impact through this, whether it's by sharing the knowledge or maybe connecting with you and giving more, creating collaboration opportunities and all of that. So today's webinar in particular is focused on co-creation, consumer engagement, and also a part of how we are tailoring our solutions and how we're focusing on this user-centric approach where everything is done with the user and for the user. And we have with us today several people that will be presenting. And we will also have a chance to ask some questions if you have any. And yeah, so just to get a quick run through the agenda. First, we will have this insights from the co-creation workshops. And within which we will have Dr. William Trunson from NTNU will be presenting for us a presentation about co-creation and the engagement of the users and trying to check their preferences and yeah. There will be some also like some interesting insights that will be shared. This will also be supported by Estebelis from Trialog. The second session is going to be focused more on the technical side, on how, in a way, this will be translated for us in terms of algorithms and digital twin, and this will be through our partners from CRS4, Dr. Luca and Dr. Eleni, also from Paragon. Finally, I mean, we're planning, as I said, to have a Q&A. We can have a big one, or if you have questions after the first presentation, we could also do a few minutes for each instead of one large session at the end. And then finally, I will wrap it up and give you some more insights about the next webinars. As I said, this is the second out of 4. Yeah, so without further ado, I think then I will leave the floor to Dr. William and Estebelis for the first session on the insights from co-creation and workshops. So thank you all. Yeah. William, please take the floor.
Yes. Thank you so much, Ahmed, for that nice introduction. Yes, let me tell you, I guess I could introduce myself first. My name is William Trondsen. I work as a researcher at the Norwegian University of Science and Technology. I have been in charge of the workshop 2 in Sender, which has been tasked with delivering the co-creation process. So I'll begin by giving you a short overview of the Sender project. I'll see if I can take control of these slides. There we go. Yes. So yeah, we have 15 partners in this project working across several countries with 3 demonstration sites that are each administered by local grid companies and research companies. So there's one in Spain, in Finland, and one in Austria. And the project now, which is nearing finalization, of course, has been aimed at developing smart grid technologies for households, such as virtual thermal energy storage, applying forecasting to thermal energy storage using devices in the home, such as heat pumps and water heaters. There was a vehicle-to-grid technology with smart charging capabilities, a communication gateway to put inside the household, and a front-end application with user interfaces over web and mobile between end users and the electricity market for controlling the demand response settings, such as hot water demand and indoor temperatures and stuff like that. There's also finally a bunch of sensors to get data about stuff going on inside the household, like motion, temperature, air quality, etc. So within technology development such as this, there are of course many expectations toward end users. They should be an active part of the market, meaning they should be doing peak shifting, peak shaving, load shifting. In other words, moving their electricity consumption around towards hours in the day when there is more electricity available in the grid. Because a flexible consumer is postulated to allow us to make better use of the grid itself, and are sometimes even expected to produce their own electricity, using, for instance, solar PV, making them into prosumers, and to actually trade electricity among themselves. So leaving aside the technical and the regulatory challenges in this presentation, can we expect users to do all this? After all, they are just regular people living out their day-to-day inside these houses. So traditionally speaking, technology design and economic market thinking have been shaping a lot of our understanding of users as consumers, rational actors that will actively seek out and use all their tools and information that are at their disposal. However, what this conceptualization ends up missing is that what we're really doing is not consuming energy. We're cooking food, washing clothes, showering, heating, watching TV, and all the other everyday stuff. So if you think about it, electricity itself is invisible, and this makes it really hard for us to actually experience energy use. Like how many kilowatt hours are we using for this washing of the clothes and the cooking of the food and so forth. So this is what makes it challenging to change these consumption patterns, which of course is the ambition of smart grid technologies. So the expectation that I mentioned last slide about energy consumers is by a large degree invented by the technology designers themselves, and they envision people that are really eager to try and fulfill this role that we've dreamed up for them. However, this kind of tends to leave out this, which is everyday life. It's a mess. So everyday life is not sufficiently described as a technical problem, and this is why economic incentives are not always effective at changing energy consumption behavior. So how do we create smart grid solutions for households that work in practice? In Sender, we have been doing co-creation from the very start of the project by taking technical aspects of the project and saying, okay, what will it mean for a person or a household in practical terms to have these technologies in place in their everyday life? For instance, how will a person experience having certain kinds of demand response actions undertaken in their home when they get up in the morning, when they're at work, and when they come home? What decisions will be taken for you as a person going about your daily life? So together with technical partners and the other stakeholders that we've involved in the project through the establishment of a co-creation steering group, we boiled the technology down into little narratives, basically, about how life would be, or what life would be like in the situation where you have these solutions in place. And then we ran these scenarios by the end users by way of the workshop. So this allowed us to sort of reality check the project. So what we do have, what we had in mind for our users, and generally say what would users be okay with. Okay, so at least we're not doing something that's completely impossible for people to comprehend or relate to. And all this culminates here at the bottom of this slide in the 5 main use cases: the residential demand response, maximizing the use of renewable energy, minimizing the electricity bill, and remote monitoring and control of household devices, and peer-to-peer trading. So when we co-created these use cases, the major takeaway is that while there's a strong support for maximizing renewable energy sources, users remain cautious about potential inconveniences. So they have these mental frameworks about which appliances and routines they can be flexible with and which they cannot be flexible with. So this affects their willingness to participate in demand response. And we also found that monetary incentives and environmental benefits are probably the most persuasive arguments, while arguments pertaining to grid stability, for instance, those kinds of concerns are less compelling. It becomes a bit too abstract for them. And then the concept of the building as a battery elicited mixed reactions. So users really value control over their household energy usage, and they're a bit hesitant to relinquish this decision making to an automated system. So they acknowledge that the automation can be beneficial, but they still want to be able to override yeah, when something unexpected happens, for instance, or perhaps. And they would also prefer, rather than an app or a web app, they would like a centralized home display for managing this energy system. So they don't have to log in. Other people can use it, like guests. And also, people weren't too keen on having another app in their pocket that they need to log into and to respond to notifications and stuff like that. So there's a bit of fatigue, I guess, connected to that. Peer-to-peer trading was a concept that they were interested and curious about, but also a bit confused about. So many people like the idea of sharing their excess energy with their neighbors. But that they seem to lack a bit of a clear idea on how this system would function in practice. So they would struggle with technical aspects of whether energy could actually be transmitted between homes or if they have to go back to the grid operator and all these. So this puzzles the end users a bit. So this was very valuable information. So the electric vehicle also, the charging routines and the vehicle to grid concept posed some challenges, primarily related to the need to have the vehicle present at home during the charging times. Let's see here. Yeah, and people were also quite open to automating this, but this willingness depended on the reliability of the system to ensure that their car would be, of course, charged when they need it. Additional information provided to the forecasting algorithm was another point of discussion, where the question would be if users would be willing to help teach the algorithm about their lives. They had some concerns about this related to privacy and control of their data, of course. And also when it came to health and safety monitoring, using smart home sensors for that was also interesting, but also a bit met with skepticism. And they would think that maybe a legacy security company would do a better job. And also if there was a health crisis, they would wonder if this would be a reliable system for doing that. So the practical issues was also something we got a lot of feedback about. So this is actually related to a very mundane task of visiting the house, entering and intervening and installing stuff at the customer side. And also some users stated that they had some technologies installed already, and they would express concern about how the new sender equipment would actually integrate with these existing setups. So that's something to think about. Yeah. So and also a lot of this, there's a very differing or varying level of knowledge here. So many people actually didn't even know where their fuse box were. And this is also different from region to region. Some of the fuse boxes are outside, and then some are inside the homes. So maybe they wouldn't actually know what they said yes to when somebody would come home and mess with their fuse box because they maybe didn't expect the installers to have to come inside. And also people would not be interested in having a lot of excessive light emissions from devices, for instance, in bedrooms and stuff like that. And also, finally, some mentioned that they didn't actually have a Wi-Fi installed, so they were using their hotspot on their phone, and this, of course, could pose a bit of connectivity issues. So I guess we could sum this up is that co-creation is useful for getting a sense of, are you on the right track with your use cases, and is what we're doing and what we're going to impose on and expose our demo participants to something that will be possible to justify and explain to them. And So you end up being a bit better prepared for what possible objections they'll have when you start bothering people with this. So there's also the added bonus, I would say, that doing co-creation gives the project itself an opportunity to work together on the use cases from the very start. So it enables all the stakeholders to be better aligned about the solutions that are being developed. So co-creation is not just something that goes on between the users and the project, but also between the different solutions, developers, and other stakeholders in the project. So it creates a better overview for everyone. And yeah, I would say sometimes in these projects, the solutions are brought on board at the beginning with maybe not a lot of scope for changing them because these projects are time limited and resource limited, so that's understandable. But even so, doing co-creation in these instances increases what you know about how the design that you do have will work. So this means you can improve what you're doing without actually making changes to the technology. So we've developed and co-created use cases, included user feedback through several rounds of workshop. So now we're ready to start the pilot and implement finished technical solutions. And this is where you go from the workshop to maybe hundreds of households, as we did in Sender. And that means you need an engagement strategy. So the strategy employed in Sender was divided into 3 phases: recruitment, consumer response, and persistence phase. The first, recruitment, encompasses all the moments in which a potential user is exposed to information relevant to the project, all the way to the moment in which they sign up. And this ranges from learning about the existence of the project, but also about flexibility, services, and demand response in general. Yeah, and you have to hold events and webinars and bring people on board, basically, about all the details of the project. And the next phase, the consumer response phase, this is where strategies are directed at initiating and consolidating behavior change and response to flexibility demands. So this phase would start with the user's own act of planning and reflecting on how to rearrange domestic energy practices, as well as the physical installation of any kind of technology in the household. So this leads up to a state where the participants are at least somewhat conscious about what the use cases mean. So they should be familiar with what you're supposed to do and what is supposed to be going on. And in the third phase, the persistence phase, it's about sustaining interest and continued participation across the duration of the project, and also ideally after the project is over. So this is where you need to arrive at some long-lasting and permanent change. So yeah. So to conclude, I will summarize some of the lessons learned not just by this project, but also from our sister projects. So this is all available in a publication that I've referenced below if people are interested in the details. So first off, we need to have a diverse set of engagement strategies. This means that you employed a range of different strategies that are tailored to be more impactful for user engagement. So this is where the data from the co-creation process comes in handy. The next point is that you need a phased implementation, which is what I explained in the last slide, meaning that you organize the engagement strategies into distinct phases, and this to make you more efficient and adaptable, and also to align these phases with the timeline of the project. And then an interest or a useful implementation is the use of keyword utilization, where the idea is to incorporate targeted keywords related to everyday life that resonate with the motivation that people have for participating in the project. So you need to sort of know your customer. Then there's a point where you need to be adaptable in crisis. As Tbilisi, my colleague, will mention something about that. But in short, you need to make sure you can face unforeseen consequences, like for instance a pandemic, and and stuff like the value of money, because it keeps changing all the time for some reason. And then The next point is motivation and eligibility. So you need to make sure to craft recruitment materials that are engaging, and that it resonates with the people's motivation to engage with the project in the first place. So this is also a bit of a know your customer issue. You need to know why they are doing this in the first place, and then play on that in order to keep up their motivation. The motivation is basically what makes them eligible to join. So keep doing continuous assessment. So you keep your ear to the ground basically, and you visit the demo sites and you ensure that the community needs and your supports are aligned. And then you need to have sustained collaboration. So you foster collaboration and knowledge sharing amongst the partners. The installer, for instance, they actually are the feet on the boots on the ground basically, and you make use of all this experience from the field. Finally, when it comes to overcoming barriers, it's really important to proactively address barriers such as and the point that this is important, or the reason this is important, is that these technologies that we implement today with these kinds of projects are expected to keep working for decades. So that's a tall order. So this is the point of that. So to sum up, all these kinds of projects, these huge technically development projects are really complex, and it requires that we integrate several highly detailed kinds of expertise from different knowledge domains, including users, who of course are the experts in their households. And that means it's important to identify and bring together all these stakeholders in a co-creation process, and ideally that also ensures that you can implement a democratic and at least not a useful smart grid. So I'll give a word to Estibaliz, and she will say something about overcoming these barriers.
Yes, hello, Estibaliz from Trialog. I just very briefly, more short explanation about short details, I would say, about the barriers in the co-creation through the pandemic times. As you know, all the sister projects, more or less, but also Sender, it started in October 2020. So there were lots of restrictions. The context was the change of the way of working, way of life also. And for us, as these are international projects, we had 3 different demo sites in 3 different countries. We had different restrictions from different countries, but also from different countries of the partners that needed to participate in co-creation meetings in the pilot or in the co-creation steering group meeting. So it was decided to do everything online with its advantages and disadvantages. In the case of advantages, as already William has said, okay, you reduce the costs because you don't have to travel, you don't have to meet people, logistics, accommodation, lunch, which is more or less okay, but you lose some kind of dynamic conversation during the brainstorming and interaction. So for engaging the end users into the discussion, engaging also in the project, in the solution, in having more interest to participate in the pilots, this could bring some challenges. So you lose this part. But in case, okay, it went well. But also we have some language barriers, of course, because we have from different countries, and maybe when you have the end users in the co-creation steering groups, we have participants of the energy, digital market, and flexibility with DSOs, aggregators, partners of the consortium of Sender. But then sometimes this technical, scientific language, or maybe sometimes business market, could be like a barrier to the end users. So we try to find some solutions, maybe make some questionnaires before the meeting to the end users to let them know better what was going to do and explain them. So maybe some kind of measure or additional measure you can take about this when you have end users and technical and scientific people talking about, technological stuff. So market stuff, it's maybe sometimes difficult for them. So just this short reflection and conclusion. So I come back the floor to William.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I would follow up with saying this was something I thought I was going to mention, but I didn't. But the language barrier when it comes to the scientific and technical language, and then bringing technical actors in the project into the co-creation process together with regular lay people, so people off the streets. That's going to be challenging because the technical partners will discuss high-level technical stuff, and this is going to very quickly leave people out. So there needs to be a bit of a translation act between these two spheres of expertise if it's going to make sense to actually to co-create with these two at all, because there's not much overlap from before. So it needs to be a little bit of a bridge needs to be made, I think. So yeah. So yeah, I guess that's yeah. So that's all from us. And then I give the word back to Ahmed, I think. You are muted.
You're muted. Yeah.
Oops, sorry. I was saying thank you, and that was very interesting. And yep, we are on time. So I guess right now we could take some questions if there's any. So please feel free to unmute and speak up if you have any question. Write in the chat. Any questions to William or Estebelis regarding what was presented now about co-creation and engagement strategies? Okay. I'm not sure how to interpret the silence. Like, is this everything was so clear that no one has any questions?
That's usually what we do. Yeah.
Yeah. But in any case, I think that I guess I will go back if you have any questions or if you want to connect with William or Estebelis. They have left their emails, so feel free to do so. As I said, one of the goals of today is also to connect people. That's I think is a good way to do it. Okay, so in that case, I guess we can go on to the second session. So in the second session, we're going to be discussing a little bit more about the consumer pattern modeling, and in a way, for me, I think there's a certain flow here because the co-creation process informed the technological development, as William was mentioning earlier. So I'm keeping an eye out for that. So yeah. Well, without further ado, I think Luca, you're going first, so please.
Yeah, thanks. I'm Luca Massidda, CRS4, Italy, and I will talk a bit about the scary part. So the more technical part, hoping not to scare anyone anyway. I need control for the slides.
Yes.
Ahmed?
Can you please press the take control?
Okay, now it's working. So one of the things that we have to develop during the development of the Sender project, technique development, was a load disaggregation tool for flexibility estimation. What is it? We pose ourselves in the role of an aggregator or an energy provider who want to assess what is the potential for flexibility for the users he has to give energy to, electric energy to. And not all the information that may be necessary to estimate this is already available. We have no information about the actual electric equipment that the user has, and how he uses it, what are his consumption patterns. So we had to develop a tool that would allow us to assess what is the potential for flexibility, especially from thermal devices. So in order to take advantage of the thermal inertia of the building and have a concept of a building as a battery. We have little information apart from the total energy consumption, the aggregated consumption for a single user or for an aggregation of users, and information about the location and the weather conditions. So we treat this problem, I'm not going into details here, as a causal problem. So we treat the thermal component of the electric load as the effect of the change in the temperature condition outside, the environmental condition in general. And so we applied the special techniques from machine learning that allow us to deal with that, and we also apply some Bayesian techniques to have an estimate. The final result, what is that once we have the information of the total load, so the aggregated load, the one we get from the smart meter for a certain user or for an aggregation of user for a substation, for instance, we can try to, we are quite accurate in estimating which component belongs to thermal electric equipment, such as heat pumps, for instance, and the part that is not, depending on that. We call that other part the base part. That base part is what we do not want to touch. We cannot have any possibility to intervene with, because it depends on the habits of the user, and typically the usage of electric equipment, the user doesn't want to change. It is particularly annoying for him to change. Thermal equipment is a bit different, because using the thermal inertia, there is a little bit of flexibility in changing the consumption pattern for that. So we developed this tool and we applied it to the test cases. We have 3 test cases, as was mentioned. One is in Finland, one in Spain, and one other in Austria. And we try to analyze what are the consumption pattern and what is the component, the part that is due to thermal loads. And so what is the flexibility from that we can try to extract from the users. In the plot you see here, there is a distribution, because there is a, sorry.
I think, Luca, you need to take control, because I see that it's still, I still have the control over the
so I ask you to, I can already see, I ask you to move to slide 25.
Okay.
Because I see it in my presentation, but probably it's not changing for everyone.
No worries.
It's 25 now?
Yep.
Okay. So in Finland, this is the plots that belong to the Finland test case. And it's a lot of plots. You see in the x-axis, there is the flexibility potential. So it's the ratio between the thermal component of the load and the total load. And we aggregated this thing for the user and for the hour of the day. And the y-axis is the hour of the day, and also for the month during the year. And here is clearly visible what are the seasonal and daily patterns for the thermal component for the Finland case. We can see that we can extract a lot of flexibility during winter months. And this flexibility is more or less constant during the day, especially in the months of January and February, for instance. And there is a higher variability during the daylight hours. And this is due to the fact that different users have different habits, and they may be present or not in the house. And they might be using or not the thermal equipment. While during summertime, no flexibility at all from the thermal equipment, because nobody probably is using electric equipment for cooling. So next slide, please. Okay, now we see the Spanish pilot that is, as expected, as a totally different pattern. We can see during spring and autumn months, there is more or less no flexibility. It's warm months, no electric equipment for air conditioning is used. While during winter and during summer, we can see that the thermal component of the load is high. And as a difference from the Finland test case, we can see a clear daily pattern. For instance, during July, we can see that during night hours, there is no potential for flexibility, and the maximum flexibility is achieved during daylight hours, so when the temperature is higher, probably. And that behavior is kind of different during, for instance, January, where we can see that during evening hours there is a higher potential of flexibility, and for the rest is very much spread throughout the users. Next slide, please. Okay, finally the Austria pilot. This is kind of in between. Okay, it's similar to the Finland test case in the fact that for the seasonal behavior, we can see that there is a maximum flexibility potential during winter, no flexibility during summer, and but as a difference, we can see a clear daily pattern for the thermal consumption during the day. With, for instance, in January, maximum flexibility is achievable during evening hours and during night, while during the day no flexibility at all, probably because the user turn off their equipment. And more or less the same is visible also in November and December. Next, please. So to summarize very briefly, thermal flexibility, that is one of the things that we wanted to extract in this project, is highly seasonal and varies significantly by location, and also as a distinct distinct patterns during the day, and these two depend by the location. Winter flexibility is dominant in Finland and Austria, while in Spain we can see both winter and summer flexibility. There are different daily patterns during the day. So as a key takeaway for a potential aggregator should be to target its policy on flexibility very much depending on the location he has to deal with. There is no one recipe for all, for sure, and the potential he can get depends very heavily on the seasonality. So it's something that cannot be applied during all the year, and also not with the same potential during the different times of the day. One other thing that is very important is that if we want to achieve that level of flexibility that is very important, 70% in Finland, as we've seen, we have to take control of all the heating or cooling equipment of the house. Otherwise, only a fraction of that can be achieved, obviously. And this may be tricky in some kind, for some users, for sure. That's it.
Thank you, Luca. Thank you so much. I think now I'm wondering if we should also take some questions for Luca now, or should we maybe continue with Eleni, and then we take questions at the end.
Well, probably it's better at the end.
Okay.
So that all the technical part is completed.
All right. So, Eleni, the floor is yours. You can take control and move the presentation.
Okay. Hello, I'm Eleni. I'm a researcher at Paragon, and we are responsible for the digital twin. Today, I'm going to present you, instead of the Norwegian University of Science and Technology, their part, the consumer participation and behavioral insights, and their key findings. NTNU conducted 2 online studies with about 2,500 Spanish and German residents, and the basic sample sociodemographics are shown in this slide. Results from 3 choice experiments conducted as part of this data collection are going to be presented today. Choice experiments are a popular method used mainly in economics and psychology. The experiments focus on preferences for smart thermostats, smart washing machine scheduling, and smart electric vehicle charging, which are 3 prominent examples of smart energy technologies. Participants made decisions in a series of choice tasks in each experiment. An example choice task is shown on this slide. In each choice task, they describe 2 alternative configurations of the studied smart energy technology. in this example, a smart thermostat, and the participant was asked to pick the one that they would prefer. This allowed NTNU to determine smart energy technology characteristics that may increase consumer demand for the technology. In this example, thermal comfort, the ability to override automated control, share of electricity used for heating generated from renewable sources, financial savings, and home climate analysis. They also collected data on participants' background characteristics and attitudes using validated questionnaire measures. The characteristics of attitudes that were assessed are listed here. For example, environmental concern was measured with items such as how concerned are you about global warming? Personal normal electricity was measured with items such as I feel a personal obligation to save electricity at home. And the variable labeled social normal electricity was measured with items such as people close to me invest in appliances and new technologies that help them save electricity at home. Then they used a method called hybrid choice modeling to analyze the data. This consists of solving a system of interlinked regression equations. The key results are here. The first result, participants are willing to accept small deviations from their ideal room temperature as part of using smart thermostats, up to 2 degrees Celsius for up to 6 hours per day. The second result, deviations from preferred electric vehicle battery charge weaken preferences for smart charging. Result number 3, in case of all studied smart energy technologies, participants always wanted to retain their ability to manually operate automated control. Result number 4, consuming electricity from renewable sources was seen as a benefit in the context of using smart thermostats, but unexpectedly as a detriment in the context of smart washing machine scheduling and smart electric car charging. Result number 5, financial savings can motivate people to use smart thermostats and smart washing machine scheduling, but not smart electric car charging. And final, result 6, the evaluation of a number of smart energy technology attributes is universal and independent of people's attitudes, beliefs, and habits. In the case of smart thermostat, this is true for thermal comfort. In the case of smart washing machine scheduling, this is true for consuming electricity from renewable sources and for financial saving. And in the case of smart electric car charging, this is true for consuming electricity from renewable sources, for financial savings, and for disliking battery charge deviations. NTNU is finalizing writing an academic paper that will present these results in detail and discuss them in the context of previous scientific literature. They have already published some results as part of the papers listed here. And in case you might have any questions, please contact Stefan, who works as a researcher at the Norwegian University of Science and Technology. Now it's our work about the consumer digital twin. Here is the overview of the consumer digital twin concept. We will explore what it is, its work cycle and occupant behavior, the pilot sites and their measurements, the replication scenarios, the main conclusions from the implementation, and finally, we will present the step-by-step process of replicating this model in our context. This digital twin is designed to generate occupant behavior profiles from monitored data. It also provides a combined view of the consumers for the grid operator or separate aggregators to identify, exploit, and commercialize the flexibility potential. A deep learning approach that satisfies the requirements of Zender solution was used. It was implemented using artificial neural networks based on human passenger twin from the aeronautic sector, where a similar developed application was used to model the behavior and responses of passengers in commercial long flights. The digital twin was developed including the International Energy Agency implementing Agreement on Energy in Buildings and Communities, Annex 66, which is definition and simulation of occupant behavior in buildings. The DNAS framework ontology is used to standardize the occupant behavior and the functional mockup interface standard to ensure interfacing. For the requirements of the Center solution, an artificial neural network enhancement was implemented for the consumer digital twin. This enhancement goes beyond the machine learning scope of AI towards deep learning. It attempts to create a closer digital twin of the occupant behavior than the typical existing statistical methods. This approach is based on Paragon's human passenger digital twin development from the aeronautic sector, from the project Health Effects of Aircraft Cabin Environment, transferring technology from a research sector that is typically several years ahead of other fields. The main advantages of the AI component are that it is a continuous learning system, and thus it can be highly individual and accurate. An enhanced consumer digital twin was developed to leverage demand-side flexibility potential. It builds upon Annex 66 to incorporate artificial intelligence via machine learning algorithms and artificial neural networks. The technologies applied were transferred from achievements of the aeronautic sector. Functional mockup interfacing was achieved. And pending application for sender pilots, a prototype with mockup data was implemented. The occupancy rate prediction achieved close prediction with up to ±2% deviation. The left figure here shows a comparison between the mockup occupancy data and the statistical prediction using Annex 66 guidelines. The key issue is that this Annex 66 statistical approach deals in shift averages, which can be quite accurate when requirements are satisfied by results that are averaged over a week or more. However, this approach doesn't align with the requirements of the SEDER project, where increments are measured in multiple minute subsets of an hour instead of multiple hour subsets of a day. In SEDER, prediction to the few minutes is necessary to obtain the overall functionality of the Center solution. The right figure here illustrates the comparison of the same mockup occupancy rate data compared to the relevant digital twin prediction. From the graph, it is evident that the digital twin prediction is a close match to the mockup data over the duration of the simulated day. No more than a deviation of ±2% is measured between the two. Therefore, the digital twin implementation, including the AI component, was demonstrated to perform according to the Center project requirements. A mockup was created for simulations with artificial data for buildings, occupants, and their behaviors. This data was designed to resemble expected occupancy data from the 3 pilot sites. The artificial neural networks component of the digital twin was initially trained using a subset of the mockup data, with the remaining separate subsets being used to validate this component and to simulate continuous learning, which is expected to occur as time passes with the Center solution running at the pilot sites. To validate this digital twin implementation, the Energy Plus open source built-in energy management system was used as co-simulation manager. The simulation period was the whole year of 2022, which in total comes to about 9,000 hours. A single test location was selected, that of Alginate in Valencia, Spain. The baseline selected for mock-up performance comparisons was the statistical approach that typically applies to large professional locations. For compatibility and ease of use, the mock-up building was a multi-store office and the occupants were office workers with 3 different shifts per day. Climate data for the Alginate location was retrieved from climate analysis. Digital twin is responsible for developing the digital avatar of a building, considering the occupant actions inside of it. The Center project puts the consumers at the core of the energy sector, engaging them both in energy consumption and production, and eventually turning them into prosumers. The first step is to monitor their behavior in the building, define, model, and convert it into actual data. The next step is to use the produced data to simulate their actions in a building and create energy forecasts. After that, the simulated results are examined and compared with real-time results. Finally, the simulated data are adjusted to represent better the actual data, minimizing the deviation between the predicted and the actual energy consumption. This exact simulation will help to optimize the relationship between occupant comfort and energy consumption. The research and development of technology that focuses on how occupants interact with a building is a new field. However, continuous improvement is essential for the development of the digital twin module. The lack of proper modeling and methodologies on the occupant behavior technology in the past was filled by the DNAS framework: drivers, needs, actions, systems. Drivers are the environmental factors that stimulate occupants to fulfill a physical, physiological, or psychological need. Needs represent the occupant requirements to feel satisfied in their environment. Actions are the interactions with system or activities performed by the occupants to improve their comfort. System refers to the equipment or mechanism in a building that occupants may interact with to restore or maintain environmental comfort. For example, using the DNAS model, the driver is the outdoor air temperature. Our need is our thermal comfort, which is the action to open the window, and the system is the window. This approach helps us better understand and improve how people interact with buildings. And looking at the right figure, it is clear why occupant behavior patterns are crucial. They are the basis for connecting the inside with the outside world. Starting from the needs of a single occupant, we create a sustainable energy pattern for a building and consequently for a whole site. COVID pandemic had a negative impact on Cinder project, which led to shortages and price rises in electronic components. Moreover, several of the households that had registered to participate were withdrawn, and some necessary equipment was no longer available, causing delays in installation and unexpected compatibility problems. The evergreen SIP incident impacted the project's on-time supply of session equipment and resulted in longer delays in equipment delivery. Regarding the pilot site's data, it was concluded that due to the delay in the installations, the available data from the household should cover at least 6 months of measurement instead of 1 year. This means that the study focuses only on 2 seasons, mostly spring and summer. The analysis showed that 173 households had been operational for 6 months, 112 in Austria, 20 in Spain, and 41 in Finland. The measurements of data at the 3 pilot sites, including photovoltaics, domestic hot water, total metering, and multi-sensor, showed that Spain has the most available data, while Austria has more limited data, focusing on photovoltaics, total metering, and multi-sensors. Finland has the least data, measuring the total metering. Multi-sensors provide measurements for humidity, luminance, motion alarm, and temperature. Here are the replication scenarios for the consumer digital twin. A replication study is a research study conducted to repeat and verify the findings of a previous study, ensuring the reliability and validity of the original results. For this study, we have chosen Austria and Spain. The baseline scenario starts with 18 households in Austria and 10 households in Spain. From here, we gradually increase the number of households in steps of 20% up to 80%, as well as the corresponding load types. This study experienced significant constraints that limited the effectiveness of digital twin. Most importantly, the number of households installed was considerably less than expected, resulting in only 10% of the originally planned households providing data. Moreover, the data collection period was drastically reduced from the planned 2 years to just 6 months, limiting the ability to observe long-term behavioral trends. In addition, there was a lack of homogeneity not only between the different pilot sites, but also between households within the same pilot site, making it difficult to draw reliable conclusions. Furthermore, data quality issues, particularly with regard to occupancy information, further affected the accuracy of the digital twin. For the accurate and reliable running of the digital twin, it is essential that data is continuous and of high quality. At least 1 year of data is necessary to properly train the model so that it can predict seasonal variations and changes in occupant behavior over time. To maintain accuracy, data must follow strict quality standards. Data must be gathered regularly and at a constant rate, for example, every 15 minutes or hourly. There should be no data gaps for more than 24 hours, as long discontinuities can affect the accuracy of the model. Only high-quality, continuous, and accurate data should be used for training the model. And in order to assure data accuracy, a qualified data manager or a responsible team should continuously monitor the data to check for missing data or irregularities. Here is a structured approach to replicate digital twin, ensuring accuracy, reliability, and meaningful results. The first step is the collection of relevant data from a database providing such data. This data should include various parameters describing household conditions, such as power and energy consumption over time, environmental conditions, such as temperature and humidity, luminance, and motion detection events. It is crucial to ensure the reliability and frequent updating of that data sources to guarantee the accuracy of the digital twin. The data collection may involve retrieving data from multiple sources, so it could be properly structured for further processing. Once data is collected, it is processed and organized into relevant groups. In order to achieve this, data must be filtered by removing inconsistencies, errors, and missing values. The format of data across different households is standardized to enable similar processing. Data is then divided into categories according to household features to make the analysis simpler, to identify easier end patterns and trends that could be used in the next step of the digital twin generation. To make digital twin model effective, households with similar characteristics should be grouped together. This includes the identification of common metrics in data that indicate similarities in household conditions, such as the existence of photovoltaic system or domestic hot water production. Homogeneous groupings allow the generation of more accurate digital twins. Subsequently, based on the grouped households, digital twins are developed. This involves creating virtual models that replicate real-world household conditions by using data collected and processed, applying machine learning or simulation techniques to generate realistic behaviors and make predictions, and validating the accuracy of the digital twins by comparing digital twin results with real data. Then, the digital twin results should be analyzed and compared with real-world data to ensure that digital twin is accurate, and scenario simulation should be conducted to understand how different factors influence household metrics. That's all from me.
Thank you, Eleni. Okay, I think I will take control now. Actually, I think I have to reshare my presentation because this is an old version, or rather I added something. Let me do this real quick, sorry. Okay. So I think that, yeah, that was the last presentation from today's webinar. So now we can move on to the Q&A session that is scheduled. So I think we have about, I guess, 19 minutes now that was dedicated to this. So I would invite anyone that has a question regarding any of the content that was presented today to just feel free to speak up or write in the chat, and just let us know. The floor is now yours instead of ours. Interesting. Okay. You guys did a really amazing job that there are no questions. But again, I will do the same. I will invite the audience to connect with Luca or Eleni if you have any further questions. And okay, then I guess it's we can finish a little bit earlier. So let me just give some closing remarks and explain what the next steps are. Or rather, as I said, this is the second out of 4 webinars. So yeah, just wanted to kind of give a bit of the key takeaways from today. And as you know, we tried to explore how user engagement is and the co-creation approach was used to identify the motivations, barriers of the user, and I think William earlier has stressed this adaptability when it comes to engaging with the users and how you should kind of relate and really genuinely respond to their everyday experience. And through that, you can define a lot of barriers, a lot of preferences, and also a lot of information that can be used in the technical development, and especially if you're looking at demand response, where they are ultimately the people that should be activated and engaged to be able to use and benefit from the technology. And these insights were used for both, the thermal flexibility, the building as a battery solution that Luca has presented, and he focused a bit also more about disaggregation and how the thermal flexibility looks like, and how it varies with the season in all of the 3 pilots, and how this tool can help the aggregator to have strategies and have information that enables them to offer flexibility. And the final presentations from Eleni, which actually there were 2 presentations. The first one, she's stepping in place of Stefan, who couldn't join us today. And she's also looking at the surveys that they have used to try to, I guess, find the user preferences and how this would impact the models that will be used in the consumer digital twin, which is this AI model that is supposed to is expected to simulate the occupant behavior, which is it's a very tough and very complicated problem to be able to have a digital replication of what we do in everyday life. Most of the time, if you ask me, I don't even know what I will be doing the next day. So as I said, this is I guess the wrap up for today, and we hope that you've learned something or found something interesting. And as I said, this is the second webinar. We have 2 more webinars. The third one next week on the 19th. Also same time from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Central European time. A bit longer because this will focus on the technology and the actual I guess the smart grid solutions and focusing on the home automation. So for me, this is a direct and a natural next step. Because it builds on top of everything. Like we have the flexibility profiling, and the digital twin that was learning from the user preferences and doing co-created with the users, and then next we're going to focus on the third webinar on how everything is going to work together and how the entire ecosystem is developed. So we're going to expand on these solutions and talk a bit more on the technology and give insights on the technical implementation. And then the final webinar, which is in 2 weeks, minus 1 day, on the 25th of March, also at the same time from 2 to 3:30 Central European Time, which will be focused more on the regulatory aspect and the market aspect. We will also discuss the business models. So it's a bit complementary to everything, and it will be the wrap up of the webinars from the Sender project. I think Manel she has shared the registration links as well and some description in the chat. So please feel free to check it out, sign up, and that was all. I hope that you have found this interesting. So thank you everyone, and thanks to the presenters for making my job easier by just making a recap.
Thank you, Ahmed.
All right, thank you. Then I wish
you.
everybody a good day. Thank you so much.
Good day, everyone.
Good day,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Have a nice day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.